Hey everyone, this is Isaiah.
And I'm Steven.
And we're back with another issue of The Single Issue. And we've got some things that we want to talk about today. Probably a very, very serious subject that I really believe that artists kind of have to get an understanding of if you're going to work professionally with anyone. Before that, though, just an introduction of what's being worked on here. It's a page of Trantal Tinies, which is a spin-off of my Trantal Town series. I believe this is like page 20 or something like that. So that's what you'll be seeing as we discuss, and if we see anything worth talking about specifically about the image that you see up there, then we'll be sure to do that. But let's get down to business, Stephen.
So, apparently there's a whole to-do with Frank Cho and Greg Rucka about Wonder Woman. Frank Cho was drawing covers for Wonder Woman, and Greg Rucka doesn't want a whole bunch of revealing stuff on the covers, and Frank Cho had drawn a part where it shows a little bit of Wonder Woman's underwear, from underneath, her armor, and this, that, and the other. So they cropped it to where it didn't show that, and Frank Cho stormed off, or something, So, he went on social media, made a big deal about it, and everything else, but the fact of the matter is that you were asked to draw something, without, cheesecaking, I guess, and you went and you did it anyway, and you're acting all surprised that, someone edited your work. You didn't give them what they asked for. You gave them what, you wanted to give them. So, I don't know. That's the basic, thing about the, that's what's going on, or that's what went on. So, there are a few people that have their own, thoughts on it, but, I go to our comic books on Reddit, and the majority of folks on there, are just I'm inclined to believe Rucka because Frank Cho is an ass, and, I've interacted with Cho before. Yes, he is an ass, and, I don't feel one way or the other about this, it's just as far as I'm concerned, it's just him walking off Wonder Woman, there's no skin off my nose, there'll be other, awesome Wonder Woman artists, but I don't know, how do you feel about this?
The thing I take from this is there's just major unprofessionalism in the way that Cho behaved, and, maybe we don't know every single side of the story, but what we do know is about the Facebook rant that Cho made about the situation, which was an attempt to completely throw Greg Rucka under the bus. And as far as I'm concerned, when you're working as part of a creative team, that kind of attempt to slam someone's character and to completely blame them for a situation is absolutely uncalled for. A lot of times in comics and in any kind of art job in general, you're going to be working with other people.
Right.
We're in this situation, Steven and I, we both self-publish comics. But when you're working on bigger projects as part of a team of something, you're not a representative of just yourself. You're a representative of the project.
Right.
And there are going to be certain people on that project that call the shots about things. And if you have a disagreement with them, then you don't try to throw them under the bus publicly.
Right.
That's a kind of professional character that nobody will want to work with. And I'm sorry, but comics for the most part is a group effort. And you're going to want people to work with you. I really believe that artists have to let go of their egos, especially when they're part of a creative team. And in this situation, that's not what we've seen. We saw Frank Cho try to make the entire situation about himself, to make it out as if Greg Rucka was completely against him. But I'm sorry, we only saw one public spat
Right.
from one party.
And for the most part, Greg Rucka hasn't really said anything, said his side of the story. It kind of sort of happened. And, most of what I've heard is just from Frank Cho. He's the one that's been in all the articles. Like, literally, 5 seconds after it happened, there Frank Cho is, spilling his guts to everyone on social media as to his version of the events. I don't even know Greg Rucka's side of the story,
Yeah, and if you have these kinds of disagreements are going to happen.
Right.
I've worked on some projects. When I worked on Help Wanted, one of my panels was edited, and it was just a minor thing, and I wasn't quite happy with it being edited digitally. I would have preferred if I was asked to redraw it myself.
Right.
But I understood that we were under time constraints, and even though it was something I wasn't completely happy with, it's like, okay, let's roll with it. But when talking with other people about this subject, there's one particular mindset that I encountered that I really believe needs to be discussed, and it's this idea that non-artists have no say in critiquing work because they don't know what they're talking about, and that's absolutely completely false. First of all, from an audience standpoint, an audience's critique is probably the most important critique. They're going to give you critiques about they're not looking for things like technical art issues. As long as your art is good, the general audience isn't going to care. But we're in this day and age now where there's a lot of social issues that people care about. People want to feel included in the media of comics, whereas comics has catered way too much to a particular kind of masculine ego. And so it's good to get that kind of critique because that's good for business, that's good for social reasons. But also, it was the idea of throwing other creatives under the bus. And that was some of the rhetoric that we saw in Frank Cho's rant. Things like Greg Rucka, other people liking, everyone loves Frank Cho's art, and it's just Greg Rucka who didn't like it. So there's this underlying idea coming from his rhetoric that is, my artwork's awesome,
right? And
the only person who has something to say about it is this guy. Well, listen, Frank Cho's artwork is amazing.
Right.
Okay,
yeah, you can't take that away from him.
Yeah, he's a good artist, But the fact is that someone who had more creative control over the project was like, this is not what we want.
Right.
And you've got to be able to fit your part in the role and just kind of roll with it sometimes. And listen, there are going to be times where there's probably going to be something a bridge that you're going to die on. That's cool. If you're going to die on that bridge, don't take anyone else out with you. Just say something like, we had creative differences.
Right.
If you go on rants, other people aren't going to want to work with you.
Right.
And like I said before, it's all about, the comics are for the most part a group effort, and you just have to get rid of that ego. And I understand it might be hard. As artists, we can be very, very connected to our work, and some of us can't take a critique very well. But the truth is that other people on the group project that you're working with are going to be looking at it from different angles, and every single one of those angles are important. And sometimes as artists get way too mixed up in the technical aspects of things that we forget things like who's our audience.
Right.
We forget things like, what actually am I supposed to be saying in this scene? You can spend you can draw the perfect hand and you can be super freaking proud of that. But if that hand was supposed to be holding something, you didn't draw it.
Right.
There's a problem there.
I mean, if you're working with a team, if you're an artist working with a team, and there's no difference between Jim Lee and Chris Claremont to Dan Jurgens and Brett Breeding. If you're working with a team and you didn't draw what they asked for, either you're going to correct it or they're going to find someone who will. And it just seems like something that Cho seems to not want to accept, and he just kind of sort of just seemed to say, well, screw it, I'm walking. It's not even like they changed Wonder Woman's face or like her body language or whatever. They cropped out a small part of that showed like her butt, with her undergarment.
And they closed it on the image more to keep the composition tight.
Honestly, no one would have ever known unless Frank Cho said something about it. It didn't take away from the rest of his art or whatever. He decided to burn the entire house down because he ran out of Eggo waffles or whatever. I mean, it's just like I
just want to also note the irony of him saying that Greg Rucka has some kind of agenda, but only one person in this situation.
Who's drawn numerous women in the Spider-Woman pose in the last few months? But Greg Rucka has an agenda.
Stir up.
Exactly.
Just to stir up.
Just to do outrage, and now you have the nerve to be outraged. Ooh, Lord. I'm trying to keep the swearing to a minimum, but, just even thinking about it is bringing, just my rage meter to, unfathomable levels here,
There's another subject that came up when I was discussing this to other people, that I do feel needs to be addressed too, and it was this idea that Frank Cho was hired to be Frank Cho.
Oh, God.
I want to dispel that myth right now about working. When you're working as an artist, no one hires you to just be yourself.
Yeah.
That's not called hiring someone. There's a completely different word for when someone gives you money to just be yourself because they believe that the thing that you make is of value to society, and it's called patriotism. And by the way, everyone, I have a Patreon. If you like what we do, you can check that out. You like that plug there?
Yeah, I have one too. I'm just going to put that out there too.
That was subtle, right?
But look, Frank Cho doesn't have the kind of attitude that I would pay for. It's just like if someone hired Frank Cho to be Frank Cho, then that's a company that I don't want to be at. If we're talking about his attitude, that is not something that I would pay money for. He doesn't have the right kind of attitude.
And considering that the writer of this project is Greg Rucka, who has an audience of people that care about representation in comics, that they weren't looking for Frank Cho's personality, they were looking for his ability.
Right.
And that's the thing. When you're hired as an artist to be part of a creative team, you're being hired because of your ability. Artists are hired to be themselves as much as actors are hired to be themselves. You're there to go on, Stephen.
Well, and see, that's the other thing. Now, I'll go ahead and say that, Frank, I think I already just put it out there that I don't care for Frank Cho's attitude. But I do think he's an excellent artist, despite the fact that sometimes I can't tell the difference between him and Adam Hughes. But, that Frank Cho rarely draws DC characters, and this is one of those rare times that he was actually drawing a DC character. And his Wonder Woman is gorgeous. I think she's the right kind of build. She looks like a warrior and everything else or whatever. And, it's just like, you had kind of like an opportunity to become legendary, and you wouldn't rein in your ego just enough to just, like, let it be. So they cropped out, like, a small part of, your artwork. But did you die? It's just like, it's just like, is it really worth making that kind of, so what happens when you and Greg Rucka encounter each other at the next Comic-Con? What happens then? Or when you guys are up for Eisners, what happens then? I don't believe.
And that's an entire audience of people.
Yeah.
That he lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
But does it expand more on what exactly an artist is hired for? When someone hires you to be a part of a creative team, they are doing so because they believe that your talents fit the tone and the mood that the art is supposed to convey. Now, it is the role of the artist to then be able to take their style into some place that is appropriate for the project, but also it is the role of the creative directors on that project to guide the artist. So just the same way that an actor's role is to interpret a character, a director is supposed to guide them on that job. And Cho was not willing to listen to guidance.
Nope.
He came in there he thought he was there to be himself, but Greg Rucka had final say over what was over the cover. And that's it. And I'm going to segue into a small, just kind of tangent, and this is probably a subject we'll discuss later, which is about style. Because one of the things that I do when I flow between projects like Transaltown and Help Wanted and Fight School High School and such is that I try to adjust my visual language to be appropriate for what we are trying to convey in those particular stories. So that's just another case where I'm not here to quote unquote be myself. I'm trying to adjust what I do to a new role.
Right.
Because if you have just a single visual language for conveying things, not only is your art just kind of be stale, but you limit yourself to what you can create.
Right.
It's so much better to be versatile and to be willing to be flexible.
And like I said, if you won't do it, they'll find someone who will. It's just that simple. I'm not going to name any names. I know someone who is in social media right now. He draws his favorite superhero is Spider-Man. He's got tons of followers. His artwork is on point. What that man can do with colors is just ridiculous. People are watching, and not just followers, but I mean people in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I hear, he had a chance to draw, Spider-Man, but he passed it up because he didn't want to draw their Spider-Man. He wanted to draw a Spider-Man that like the manga-looking Spider-Man action figure that they put out a few years ago. It's like who's the guy? Koyabuya or something like that.
I'm unfamiliar with that.
So he passed that up or whatever. Well, okay. Marvel is hiring you to do their character, and you decided you don't want to do it because it's not the version that you want to work with, and I don't.
But hey, it sounds like he turned it down in an amicable way. Did he go on a Facebook tirade?
And I don't know. I mean, this was before my time. Okay. So, but this is just
if you feel as if you're not comfortable with the way that a project wants you to do create art, that it's fine to walk away.
Right.
It's completely fine to walk away. Just don't be a butt about it. Nobody wants to work with that. That's not a good look.
Mm.
It's not fun. Not cool.
Well, I don't know. I
know people who have gotten jobs. I won't name any names, or even I don't want to say the publishing companies either.
Uh-huh.
But I know publishing companies that have picked up new creative teams, and companies that have picked up new artists. Good friends of mine, simply because they are active and vocal on the internet while being personable. These are people who are genuinely, they're my friends, so I know that they're generally good people to be around, but they convey friendly personalities, are willing to work with people, and they've created professional relationships because of it.
Right.
And I'm not sure how Cho began his career, but I'm sure that in the beginning of his career, if this attitude wouldn't have kept him in it long.
Nope. So, well, I mean, there's nothing saying that his attitude will keep him there now. eventually, you do this enough times. Although, in the explanation that he tried to use on Eric Larson's Facebook, he made noises about going off and doing his own thing. So, whether or not he does that, remains to be seen. But if he's going to have the type of attitude that he has, then I would implore him to do something like that, instead of dragging everybody else with him. So.
Well, I just hope that if he's primarily works as a cover artist now, and if he's planning on doing his own project now, I hope that he can do the writing himself and that he's willing to do the pages himself. Because if not, he's gonna have to work with people.
Right.
And maybe he'll find himself a crew of people that can deal with his personality. But the thing that I want everyone who's watching and listening to this today to understand is that you have to be willing to work with people. You have to shed yourself of your artist ego sometimes. I understand that what we do is very personal, that we can become very, very connected to the things that we create, but at the end of the day, you're working on a product, and if you're part of a team, you have to create the product that the team is trying to craft.
And if you make a big stink about it, word gets around. So,
Yeah, nobody on the level that we're at can do that.
Yeah.
You would be amazed by how small the comics world is. I mean, I can just find myself just less than 3 degrees to big names. So if I do something that's extremely detrimental, that will ruin my chances in the future.
Right.
Because it is a small niche community. So just be personable. And if you can't be personable, just know how to work with people.
Right.
I'm sounding like a broken record, but shed yourself of that ego. That's all the time we've got today.
Hey, look, we're here for you. So, you're welcome.
Yeah. We'll check you guys out next time.
All right. Bye, guys.